My name is Andy Ryhill. After leaving school at the age of 16 with 5 O-levels, I took up a 5-year apprenticeship in mechanical and electrical engineering at the Royal Ordnance Factory in Nottingham, building Chieftain and Centurion tanks for the British Army. I then decided to leave the Ordnance Factory and work for a company called Roneo Vickers, who manufactured stencil duplicators. In those days there were no offset printing machines, so stencil duplicators were the way forward. But I didn't really enjoy the job, so I then moved to a company called Rotoprint, who were the last printing machine manufacturer in this country to build printing machines. I was on the maintenance, servicing of the machines. They then promoted me to service manager and then moved me on to sales. I then changed jobs again and moved to a company called Heidelberg. Heidelberg is a German company, Heidelberg Druckmaschinen, who build printing machines, manufacture printing machines, and they are still the #1 printing machine in the world for quality and reliability. I then got rather cheesed off with the fact that I was doing about 40,000 miles a year, length and breadth of the whole country, as far south as Devon and Cornwall, South Wales, Warwickshire, Worcestershire, Shropshire, Derbyshire, Nottinghamshire, Leicestershire, Northamptonshire. And I thought, well, this isn't really for me long term, travelling up and down the country doing 40,000 miles a year. But it was always my ambition to start my own printing business, and that's what happened when Fine Print was incorporated on the 31st of July 1986. I became very friendly with a guy called Phil Nichol, who then became my future business partner. And with my experience on maintenance and repair of printing machines, and because I could also print, Phil was an excellent graphic artist, very good at design. So I thought, well, that would be a good combination for a graphic artist and a printer to start a business, and that's how it all started. So enough about me now. Basically, once Phil and myself began in 1986 in a basement in the centre of town, our main objective then was to build a customer base, which was hard work, but bit by bit our customer base increased. And after 18 months we had to move to bigger premises the other side of town on Ilkeston Road, which we were there for 13 years, outgrew those premises and eventually moved to our present premises in the year 2000. So as of today we've been at the present premises for almost 25 years. It was a challenge, and I knew deep down inside that Phil and myself could make it a success. With his ability to do graphic design and my ability to print and repair and maintain the machines as and when necessary. In the 38 years, things have changed massively. I mean, when I first started, letraset was king because there were no computers. So in this case, Phil used to do the artwork and use Letraset, which was hard work, laborious and time consuming. And once he'd Letrasetted, say, a business card or letterhead, we would then have to put the proof in the post and post it to the customer, who then rang us with his approval. Letraset was a sheet of waxed paper, and onto that waxed paper were letters, the alphabet, or any symbols, numericals, anything, printed onto the sheet. And what you actually did then was you laid the sheet on a piece of artboard and scratched the letter out, which then transferred onto the piece of paper. I mean, that was the start. We had a plate making facility and a vertical Agfa Gave Art camera that we then photographed the artwork onto a chemical transfer paper, which we then put into contact with an aluminium plate, and the chemical transfer paper transferred the image onto a litho plate, and hence then the litho plate went onto the printing machine to print litho. Well, of course, in those days there was very little print done in full colour. Most print was black and white, black print onto white paper. Customers then started getting a little bit more demanding and wanted literature, flyers in full colour. So that was a massive change. But of course, at the time, machines that separated the colours to produce full colour work were machines called a rotary scanner. So they were very expensive. Printers couldn't afford to buy a scanner, so there were companies out there who purely specialised in scanning full colour work, who purchased a rotary scanner. So we used to send a coloured photograph to a scanning shop, and they used to separate the colours to full colour and then return that to us onto film, negative film, and then we had to then expose the film onto an aluminium plate and obviously then put it onto the press. But at the time we only had a single colour press because we couldn't afford multicolour presses, so the job had to go through the press 4 times. So your first colour, you printed cyan, let that dry, then put the print through again and put yellow on the machine, followed by magenta, followed by black, to finally produce your 4-colour print. As things progressed, we realised that by printing full colour 4 times through the press made us not very competitive. So we had to look at other options to make us more competitive. So I believe in 1996 we purchased a 2-colour machine, which we actually still have now. It's a 2-colour Heidelberg GTO, which meant that we could put 2 colours on the machine and print 2 colours in one pass, which meant that doing full colour work we could do in 2 passes rather than 4 as we originally did, which made us a little bit more competitive. But then of course other printers were buying 4 and 5 colour presses to do full colour work in one pass, which made us less competitive again, because we had to put it through the machine in 2 passes. And that's why we made a very big decision in 2004. Phil and myself went to a printing exhibition in Germany, and we saw multicolour presses in action, and we thought, well, this is the only way forward, otherwise we won't survive. So we purchased a 5-colour press, which we still have now, and it's running very successfully, for a massive outlay. Took a big risk, and I think the 5-colour press has kept fine print in business. Otherwise we wouldn't have been here if we'd have stayed as we were with a 2-colour press. And obviously other changes, the front end of fine print, the computer side, the graphic side at the front end has changed unbelievably. It's totally different. It's a little bit above my head now, but the difference is that we can now produce our own full colour work in-house because we've got the graphics, the equipment to do that. So things have changed massively, and obviously then the progression to digital printing, which will never totally replace litho printing, but for short run work, etc., large format work, digital is the way forward. One of the things that were, I thought, not so much an achievement, but I thought the way forward was when my son joined the business in 1993, where I could rely on him to produce the work. He became a very good printer. He did his printing apprenticeship, City and Guilds, and that was important to me. It's something he wanted to do, so straight from school at the age of 16, Peter joined us, and he's been here ever since. So that was important for me. And obviously in 2004, when we purchased the 5-colour machine, that put fine print on the map for future printing requirements. I handed the reins over to Peter in 2010. He became a director of fine print, and basically since 2010 I became part-time, took retirement but not fully retired. So from 2010 I used to do on average 15-20 hours a week, but Peter predominantly ran the day-to-day running of the business from 2010 and up to today. I used to get many phone calls from Peter asking me to come in and help him and advise him, which I was happy to do, and I still do today at the age of 74. It's family. Peter's very passionate about the business. He's been a rock to me from the day he started. He's never let me down. and he's hardworking, and the business has been successful since, which makes me very happy. The Journey Without a Ticket book we printed in 1988. It was the first book we ever printed, and the lady, the authoress, was her name was Christina Kowalska, and she approached me one day and said, "Look, I want to write a book on the history of how we ended up in the UK." And a very interesting book, actually, and it's titled Journey Without a Ticket. And basically what happened when at the start of the Second World War, Germany invaded Poland on the 1st of September 1939. In the meantime, the Russians invaded Poland from the east, and basically when the Russians invaded Poland, they went to all the villages in the east of the country, where the parents came from as well, gave them 20 minutes to gather any personal belongings they wanted to wear, put them onto cattle trucks, and sent them over to Siberia to work in the labour camps. So they lost all the possessions, houses, farms, and went to Siberia, where they worked in labour camps. When the Russians then decided to fight against the Germans, the people got freedom, and like in my father's case, he joined the Polish army and fought in Monte Cassino in Italy. My mother went to Palestine. She was too young to join the forces, so she went to a school in Palestine, and of course when the war ended, they ended up in the UK. Some people decided to go to America, some went to Australia, not many went back to Poland, and that's how they ended up in the UK. So this book basically is, the reason it's titled Journey Without a Ticket, because they didn't know where they were going and they had no ticket, but they did end up in Siberia in the labour camps. So very interesting reading. So that was the first book we ever printed, and this is actually the first book off the press, signed by Christina, which she let me kindly have. That same year, because again, it's my Polish connections, and my father at one time was the chairman of the Polish community in Nottingham, because Nottingham had the second biggest Polish community after London. At one time there were, I believe, something like 35,000 Poles in Nottingham, because of the work predominantly in mining, coal mining. A lot of the Poles worked as miners, and Nottingham was rapidly expanding, so there was a lot of work in the building trade. And in 1988, the Polish community in Nottingham was celebrating their 40th anniversary of forming in Nottingham from 1948 to 1988. Hence, again, they asked us to print this 40th anniversary book for them, which was hard work because the computers were very basic. The photography was sort of black and white, but a good memory. And on the front cover you have the St Barnabas Cathedral, Nottingham Cathedral, which the Poles first used for their Sunday masses before they built their own church in 1983. So that's the Polish church, and that is the cathedral. We're still around, we're still happy to serve, no, let's keep everything local. We'll help the community, and you help us.